I do think when people reveal something, they are actually authentic. I think it adds to the credibility and, for me, the usefulness of the account as well. Sorry, was there another question too?
Yes, Elizabeth McInnes is asking about hashtags, and is there a process of defining or deciding what's an appropriate hashtag?
Well, it's good to do a little bit of scouting around first, because rather than inventing the wheel, if someone else has already got a wheel going, you may be better off engaging with that group. So I'm just, as we're talking, taking us to Simpler, which is a fantastic initiative which registers hashtags internationally that are being used in healthcare discussions and conferences. So, that's a good place to start, to see if there is a hashtag registered in your area already. And if you're having a conference or an event, set a hashtag for it and register it with Simpler, which is all free. You just walk through the steps on their website and you'll get great analytics about, who is tweeting from your event, how widely it's going. And it's lovely to feed back to a conference as well. I think it makes conferences much more, active and participatory rather than the old model of, people on the stage talking and everyone else listening. It's a much more dynamic, engaged process. And, you can feed back to people at the conference in real time, the conversations that are being had and the analytics from Twitter.
Yeah, so Elaine's asked about conference tweeting. So, what's your feeling for what's an appropriate kind of content for when you're tweeting about conferences?
Again, I think it goes to, why you're on Twitter. So, if you're at a conference, you might see this as an opportunity to tweet the news about the fields you're interested in out to people. You might see it as an opportunity to tweet into a particular hashtag as well as the conference hashtag. You can tweet photos from conferences. If I'm live tweeting a conference as a journalist, as people are tweeting, I will often try and insert links into the tweets relevant to what they're talking about. So if someone is mentioning research, some health services research, and presenting on it, I will try and find a link that I can tweet, that links to the actual journal, publication, etc. So, that's about providing service, adding value for people. As a journalist working in a very resource-constrained environment, I so appreciate it when people go to conferences and tweet. I can be sitting at home in my home office and get a good sense of, the discussions that are happening at a conference and, how interesting it seems to be, who are the good presenters, what are the topics that might be worth following up. And, I'm not alone doing this. I know journal editors are doing this as well, so I think conference tweeting is tremendously valuable. I know some people can find it intrusive. It can be challenging. People cannot get it right. It's not only journalists who make mistakes. Sometimes it's quite exhausting live tweeting conferences as well, but I think it's very enhancing overall.
Yeah, I agree. If I know there's a conference going on that I can't attend, then I'll often just check the hashtag for the conference, and it's a good substitute for not being at the conference, I think.
Yeah,
it varies from conference to conference, but it can be really useful.
Yeah, and I think the health sector's really been, really great about adapting and making the most of conference reporting. I find it quite fascinating when I go to journalism conferences. Often there aren't as many active tweeters as there are at health conferences.
Yeah. And Kat's just sent a note saying tweeting at conferences is like taking notes. You can look back for the key messages at a later date.
Exactly.
Good point.
Yeah.
There's a couple. One other question on a slightly different topic. Magnolia has asked, what proportion of elderly people have Twitter accounts, and is this a good way of reaching them to attend health services or join research?
I don't know the figures, actual stats on elderly people, but I think it's fair to say you shouldn't assume that they're not on Twitter. And, one of the most famous recent examples of this, I learnt the news about Malcolm Fraser's passing on Twitter. And, I immediately went to his Twitter account because he had been such a valuable contributor to debate, including via Twitter. And you know, my theory, totally unproven by anything but intuition, is that a lot of people felt, you know, very personally connected to him because of his engagement in that way. To see someone like him at that stage of life, you know, tweeting, I thought was a tremendous contribution. I also think of Peter Doherty, you know, the Nobel laureate, in that light. You know, he is contributing far beyond his, you know, scientific realm to public debate these days. And I guess, you know, quite apart from health services research, I'd encourage everyone to think of themselves as digital citizens, you know, that there is a capacity to contribute in the digital space as an engaged citizen. Just coming back to health services research, though, this is just a search to show that Twitter is actually a topic of research in health as well. So it's not, you know, its importance is far beyond dissemination and engagement in that way. Just to quickly take you, you know, going back to that idea of thinking about who your stakeholders are, whether individually or, you know, more for your field or your organisation. Identifying who they are and connecting with them on Twitter is very useful. And there's Susan Ley, the health minister, and you can see, you know, you get a sense of who she is from the website. You know, that we know she's a pilot. There you go. There she is, entertaining bananas in pajamas. And, you know, she's quite active in sharing the news of where she's at, what she's doing on Twitter. So again, an opportunity to interact with her. If she's doing something related to your field of research, you know, engage, talk to her, send her the links to your evidence. Lord knows they need to hear from some health services researchers, I think. So Twitter also is a site of innovation, as I said, you know, connecting up different fields. And this is We Public Health, which is a rotated, curated account. Which means that every week we have a different person tweeting from this account. It's a Croaky project, and it's billed as public health meets citizen journalism. So again, encouraging people like yourselves to take up those wider roles as digital citizens. So this week we have Gemma Jacklin, as I mentioned, from Sydney Uni, tweeting all about breast cancer screening, and she's been doing a fantastic job, you know, disseminating a whole lot of links, covering topics on a day-by-day basis, and she even did a Twitter interview. I think she's just done that. And if you're interested, you can go and look at the hashtag. She must have set that as the hashtag for it. So she found someone, Mac Health Forum. Who are they? I'll just click to find that. And she did a Twitter interview with them. So, you know, again, going back to that idea of convergence, doing some of the role of journalism while also talking about research in her field. Sorry, this is my slow rural internet connection. So that's who she was Twitter interviewing with, the McMaster Health Forum from Canada. So again, just showing how those links can really span the globe. So now we're back at the We Public Health Twitter feed with Gemma. Sorry, I'm just trying to get that working. And I would like to acknowledge that We Public Health actually modelled on another rotated, curated account, Indigenous X, which has been a fabulous initiative. Luke Pearson set it up, and it has a different Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander person tweeting from it every week. And again, an opportunity for health services researchers who are Indigenous. So, you know, there's We Public Health. I would love to have any of you volunteer to do a week guest tweeting and digging into an issue for the people who follow We Public Health. You know, I view this as a bit of community development around public health, as well as having a journalism function. And here's Indigenous X. They're having a forum right now, promoted by the National Indigenous Cancer Network. So, you know, that's another opportunity. So when you're thinking who you can engage with on Twitter, don't just think health narrowly. There's all sorts of other channels out there where you can bring health into the discussion. So that's Indigenous X. And another one, I don't know if any of you have already engaged with this other rotated, curated account, which is called Real Scientists. I must admit I'm not familiar with who has set this up or the story to it, but if we look at it, and it would be great to have some health services researcher. They've got 18,000 followers. So I would love to have you at We Public Health with, we've got 5,500 followers there, but, you can go to Real Scientists and have 18,000 followers. That said, as I mentioned, it's not all about the numbers, it's about the quality and, whether this is the right audience for you. So also be thinking about that. But again, it just shows how, even 10 years ago, there was a very tight choke really on the gatekeeping of, who got into public debate and media. And now that's been blown apart by digital, and really there's such a huge range of options where you can engage beyond the mainstream media if you want to be talking about health services research. That said, it's not an either or. Often what you do on social media will feed into mainstream media and vice versa. Okay, so there's many tools for Twitter analytics, where you can see how far your tweets are going, what impact they're having. And this is the one I'm using at the moment from Twitter. They're one, and so it gives you 28-day summaries of, how many tweets you're doing, how many people have visited your profile in the last month. So that's telling me nearly 4,000 people visited my Twitter profile in the last month. So that again emphasises the importance of, really thinking about what you put in there. It's telling me my top tweets. So there's one I did on International Women's Day, just a photo of flowers using the International Women's Day hashtag. And, that tweet where I thank all the smart, funny, brave, compassionate, generous, kind, sharing women on Twitter, I'm utterly sincere in that because, when you immerse yourself in Twitter as I do, you learn so much from people. There's a lot of people who share, very powerful personal stuff and, really appreciate that. And then here's another one from Daniel James, who is a web developer, digital type person, and he's an Aboriginal man from Victoria. And he made a video in response to the recent protest around plans to close WA remote communities. So this hashtag arose on Twitter, SOS Black Australia. And last week there was a protest, both a virtual protest on Twitter using that hashtag, and also in real life there were marches around the country. This is a hugely important health issue for people. So you can see that Daniel made that clip. Again, he harvested people's tweets. If you want to go and look at the clip later, it's a groovy little clip that just sort of flashes around tweets. And he tweeted out the link. He put Luke Pearson's name in, the founder of Indigenous X. He put Croaky Blog in. He put On Topic Oz, who is Summer May Finlay, who works at NACCHO and is also doing her PhD, and Indigenous X. And he put those things in because he knew we would retweet him. So again, developing links. So if you know someone is interested in your field and might help get your tweets out by retweeting, it's a good idea to include their Twitter handle like that. Now, I'm just looking for another one. So there are any number of types of Twitter analytics, and this is another one that I'm also signed up to, and it tells you who is retweeting you. So it's a good way of identifying who is engaging with you and your topic matter. And I think that goes to the point of the power of open networks again, because you can think you know the networks who are interested in your area, but you can just be going back to the same old people in the same old field, not realising that in other fields there's actually other people interested in your area as well. So this is a tweet that this analytic program sends out, and there's Richard Weston from the Healing Foundation, and he's saying my best retweets this week came from Croaky Blog and Damien Bonson. So we did the most retweeting of his tweets. So I find that quite useful to see. It gives me a sense of the networks that I'm tapping into. Oh, sorry, gone off the page again. Now I will just go to another browser, if you will bear with me for a minute. So we're going to Croaky Blog here. And, I'd just like to encourage you all to engage with Croaky Blog. If you want to contribute articles and so on, we really appreciate that. We really rely on having an engaged community, and particularly an engaged digital community. I'll just show you here. I have the archives for the We Public Health Twitter handle, if that will come up. Yes, sorry. Rural internet, it's slow. And this is where we describe what We Public Health is. And, you know, each week I upload the bio of the person tweeting. So there's Gemma, who's tweeting this week and telling us what she's tweeting about. And what I do at the end of each week, last week we had a public health person working in local government tweeting, Chad. So each week I take a grab from some of their tweets just as a record, you know, and you can see he was talking about what local governments are doing in public health. So if you go to that link, you get a good sense of the range of people who've engaged with this account and the different types of things that they're talking about. And to me, you know, again, this is partly about community development, you know, which is an issue for your organisation, as well as providing a service and also, you know, making news that hopefully is of interest or use to people. And finally, because I've probably talked on too long if there's questions, just to end on a declaration. And so this is Croquis funding sources. We are a low budget organisation, but we really appreciate all the members of the funding consortium who put in $2,000 a year to keep us going. And so there you go, there is your association. And I'd like to, you know, acknowledge and thank you all for supporting Croquis. And as I said, I would also, you know, value your contributions in terms of articles or We Public Health as well. So are there any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. We got a few questions. I mean, Rachel Tuvey is asking a question I certainly struggle with, which is, so I find the Twitter feed can be overwhelming. So she only follows 100 people. So how do you manage? So you obviously follow a lot of people. How do you manage or prioritize the feeds?
Sure. Well, I think one good way, and I'll just go back to my profile, is lists. So as I mentioned, I don't really use lists myself because I actually like the chaos. I like seeing, you know, how there's different intersections between different fields. I guess that's, you know, the journalist. But for you, so I've just clicked through to lists here that I've subscribed to. But you can establish a list, your own list. So you can divide up the people that you follow, you know, whether it's around a topic or, you know, you might have a media list, you might have a health services research list, or you might have just your specific area. And so you can, you know, break the content up like that if you like. You can also subscribe to other people's lists. And here, you know, I've subscribed, again, I don't tend to go to these very much, but I've subscribed to other people's lists. So there's one that a public health physician, Aaron Hollins, has established, and it's tweeters who work in Aboriginal community controlled health organisations. So anyone can go in and follow that list, and it's created. There's Helen Bevan, who has really driven the use of social media in healthcare reform in the UK. So she's got a list of 28 people who are global healthcare improvers. So I imagine that list might be of interest to many of you. And there's the free open access medical education list, you know, which has been a self-organising group providing free online medical education. So again, I imagine that might be a useful list for your group to tap into. But for a start, at an organisational level, it would probably be useful for you to establish a list of everyone in or your members who are tweeting, so that you can have a list of them that is publicly available, as well as for you to follow, perhaps embed it on your website.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can't say that Twitter, you know, isn't overwhelming or doesn't take time, because it does. But from, you know, I think to me, the benefits outweigh the costs of that. I think, you know, for me, it's been transformative for my practice as a journalist. It's also, as I mentioned, you know, earlier when I was talking with John and Sarah doing a PhD, it's just been tremendously useful in terms of, you know, linking me into networks that I otherwise wouldn't have had access to, learning from people, you know, every day learning from people on Twitter. And people have been incredibly generous in terms of sharing resources and ideas and so on. So, you know, I just find it so useful.
Okay, just a couple of quick kind of technical questions, it seems. So Elaine has asked, could you explain the significance of starting a tweet with a dot versus without?
Yeah, no, that's very important, and thank you for raising that, because I did mean to mention that earlier. Now we'll go back to my notifications here as an example of that. So Melinda has said that she's enjoying listening to this session, which is very nice of you. I'll just reply to that. See, I'm hitting reply, and I'll just say thanks for the feedback. Now, if I just send that like this, sorry, there, can you all see that? If I just reply to that tweet like that with her Twitter handle at the beginning, the only people who will see that tweet are the people who follow both Melinda and I. So that's the most common mistake that I see people make on Twitter. They start a tweet with a Twitter handle, not realising that that will limit access. So if you're replying to someone, I might only want Melinda to see that. You know, I'm a bit shy about tweeting that out to everyone because, you know, looks a bit self-promoting if I do. But if I wanted to, and, you know, people do, and good on them, I will put a full stop in front of it. And that way everyone who follows me will see that I've been talking to Melinda and having that conversation. So if you're replying to someone and you think your reply is likely to be of interest to people following you, you know, put a full stop on it, and that will get it out. So that's one tip on that, and I'll reply to Melinda properly later. But another tip.
A related question is about, is there a way of tweeting to a group of followers only rather than all followers?
Yes, so what you can do DMs to a group. So if you go into you can only send direct messages or DMs to people who are following you. You have to be following each other. So before you do that, you have to make sure. Sorry, I'm not going to take you into my DM page because there might be some confidential tweets there. But, you know, you can easily negotiate if you go in, and you can add multiple people to a DM so you can have those private conversations. That said, I mean, my advice to people is, you know, never really put anything into a DM unless, you know, you could live with it being made public, because I think, you know, these things are always potentially breachable. Whoops, I've gone into a DM there. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. What I'm trying to do is another way to reach a group is, if you're starting a tweet, you just put everyone's Twitter handles on it, either at the beginning, if you just want it really to go to them, or, you know, at the end of the tweet, as I showed you earlier with that notification where Daniel James sending out the clip about SOS Day, you know, put everyone's Twitter handle at the end. And so there's Melinda. You can see she's come straight back saying, you know, tweeting to everyone. She's put my Twitter handle at the end to make sure, you know, I will see it. And, you know, so that's how you direct it to people. There, someone's put in the hashtag. Melinda's put in the hashtag again. Someone else commenting as well. So just saw Erica's comment, don't tweet when tired, angry or drunk. Must go quiet in grant season. That's very funny. Yes, although I do remember Julie Lease from Sydney Uni tweeting once when she was doing grants one year how useful it was. She was thinking about tweeting her grant application, because, you know, tweeting is actually a very useful way of forcing you to, you know, work out what it really is you want to say, because you're so constrained in the space, and being concise and direct. So yes. Okay.
Megan's asking about the Twitter analytics. Do you have to pay for those?
No, I don't pay for any. That Twitter one is free. The other one I showed you, you know, who's retweeting you, is free. The Simpler one is free.
And how do you sign up for those? You
just basically Google to find the right site to log in. So Simpler, just go to the website and, you know, look at the hashtag. Simpler is for when you're doing a conference. So when your association's having a conference, register your hashtag in advance. You just have to apply to register it. That's all. And the other ones you just Google. But really there's so many different analytics, and I'm not a Twitter expert in the sense of, you know, having done the research about what is the best analytic. So if that is really important to you, I'd encourage you to, you know, read widely around that. You know, Google Twitter analytics, see if people have published on it. I haven't gone into those things in great depth myself to say to you, this is the best analytics. I'm just using the one that happened to come up and be convenient for me.
Okay. Sharon just asked, are the mentions part of 140 characters? Out of it?
Yes. So when you put someone's Twitter handle into the tweet, that is part of the 140 characters. So there's other ways, so say you want to, this is what I will do sometimes, say I want to bring something to people's, a group of people's attention specifically. So I will take maybe a screenshot of a press release, or a screenshot of a document, or a screenshot of a studies, abstract in a journal. And then I will attach that to the tweet, which makes me think we haven't actually talked about images so much. I will attach that to the tweet and put everyone's Twitter handle, taking up all the 140 characters, but the actual text is attached as an image. So there's all different ways of trying to get material out.
Okay, yeah. Kat asks, what are your thoughts on advances in technology such as Twitter leaving behind disadvantaged groups, such as those with low literacy levels, and how to work around this?
I mean, I think digital literacy is a great area for public health interventions, helping people to become more digitally literate, ensuring there is equity of access. But I'd also caution about making assumptions about who or who is not, using these sort of communication channels as well.
Yeah. Emmanuel just asked about how do you manage catching up with, it's a similar question to the overload, and how often is it useful to be getting onto Twitter? So I mean, I guess you're on all the time, but
yeah, but I mean, I talked about substitution before, so my routine used to be sit down and read 2 or 3 newspapers every morning. I don't do that anymore. I read Twitter instead. I can read Twitter on my phone when I'm waiting for a bus. I can read Twitter, waiting at the doctor's surgery. It's something that you can access pretty well anytime, anywhere. So you can fit it into your schedule a bit like that.
Yeah. Megan makes a comment about the Queensland Police Service as an amazing example.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do have a clip from one of their tweets. I think they're another really good organisation to look at, and who would have thought that the Queensland Police Service could have a sense of humour? But they do some very funny tweeting, which is a way of engaging and humanising them as well. And I think the example is often quoted from the Queensland floods, where they really were one of the lead news sources. They had more people accessing them on Facebook than the Courier Mail was selling newspapers. So, and I know public health authorities in Queensland engaged with the Queensland Police Service, recognised that they were a publisher and a great channel for getting out information to the community.
Great. It's just the last question is, if you possibly show us how to set up a list?
Okay. So do I remember how to do this? It's a while since I've
putting you on the spot.
Actually done one. Possibly not. Just going to find profile. But what I might do is make sure I can do it and then just send you a note. I think it's, as I recall, very straightforward. There'll be an icon somewhere that says lists, and you just go in and add things to it. But
if you can send me the details, I can send that out.
Yeah.
The other thing I've also found very useful that I came across is, people may know about, is that there's systems whereby you can shorten URLs as well. If somebody's got a really long URL, picking up all your 140 characters, you can go Google shortener, and you can get a really concise URL.
I think I did used to use those URL shorteners a lot, but I think a lot of sites now just automatically shorten. So I don't tend to use them as much, but they can be useful when if you have got a really long URL.
Okay, Melinda's answered the question. She says if you click on your name on the right, you click lists, and then there is a create a new list button. we can forward that.
Yeah.
All right, just the very last question.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Is from Emmanuel, is how do we convince research organisations to get onto Twitter?
Well, I always find that people, you know, I'm a journalist and I'm not very persuasive when it comes to talking to people out of other fields, that that our whole idea of peer learning is so much more powerful. So, you know, I would be finding the researchers or people who are very influential in that field who are engaging and, you know, getting them to help in that quest. That said, I mean, the London School of Economics Twitter Guide was published years ago. I think that was 2009. You know, they were urging academics to get with it. And if you look at their excellent blog that they run around social media and research, I mean, it's years ago now that they said blogging is the most important thing an academic can be doing today, because it just dramatically increases, you know, potential reach and impact. So, you know, I think organisations that are still resisting this is sort of some years after those type of publications came out. So, yeah, I guess that shows the challenges that this new field poses as well.
Hello.
Yeah, but there you go. There's my list that I subscribe to.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got a personal one, but again, I don't really use it. As you can see, I just put a few friends on that one, and I locked it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know other people find this very helpful. Yeah.
That's been a tour de force of Twitter. Thanks very much, Melissa. Unfortunately, we can't give you a round of applause because we can't.
Funny not being able to see you all, but at least I can see you on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or some of you.
Yeah. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone for attending our first webinar, and I hope to see you at the subsequent webinars, first of many, we hope.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Come and say hello on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the meeting. So that's end it for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks for organising, Sarah.
Okay. Thanks, John.